What kind of person steals from a thrift shop, where every dollar keeps hope alive for the desperate? Karen stormed into Second Chance's Thrift on a humid Tuesday morning, her heavy steps thumping against the creaky wooden floor. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the cluttered shelves of the small shop in downtown Millville. The air smelled of musty fabric and old books, and the faint hum of a radio played gospel tunes in the background. Karen, in her late 40s, carried an air of entitlement that seemed to suck the warmth from the room. Her floral blouse strained at the seams, and her scowl was a permanent fixture, as if the world owed her something better than this dingy little store. She wasn't here to browse. She was here to take. The thrift shop was a lifeline for Millville's struggling community, run by volunteers like Sarah, a soft-spoken woman in her 20s who believed in second chances for people. For things, for hope. Sarah stood behind the counter, organizing a tray of donated jewelry, her hands gentle as she polished a tarnished locket. She glanced up as Karen barged in, offering a warm smile that went unreturned. Karen didn't care about Sarah's kindness or the shop's mission. She had spotted a sleek, leather purse on a rack near the back of designer knockoff, but it looked expensive enough to impress her book club friends. It was perfect, too perfect to pay for. Karen's fingers brushed the purse, her heart racing with the thrill of what she was about to do. She glanced around. Sarah was distracted, helping an elderly customer with a stack of sweaters. The only other person in the shop was a quiet teenage boy, browsing vinyl records in the corner. No one was watching. Karen's lips curled into a smug grin as she slipped the purse under her arm, tucking it inside her oversized tote bag. But in her haste, she didn't notice her own wallet, a cheap, faux leather thing stuffed with credit cards and receipts, slipping out of her bag and into the purse she'd just stolen. It fell silently, nestled among the purse's inner pockets, a ticking time bomb of her own making. She moved toward the door, her steps deliberate but casual, as if she belonged here. Sarah called out, "Have a great day!" But Karen ignored her, pushing through the glass door into the sticky summer air. The bell above the door jingled, a mocking sound of her escape. She felt invincible, untouchable. Stealing was easy when you believed you deserved more than everyone else. Back inside, Sarah returned to her work, unaware of the theft. But the teenage boy, Ethan, had seen everything. His dark eyes followed Karen's path out the door, his fingers tightening around a scratched Beatles record. Ethan was no stranger to trouble grown up in Millville's roughest neighborhood, where survival meant noticing things others missed. He'd seen Karen's sly movements, the way she tucked the purse away like a predator hiding its kill. He hesitated, then approached Sarah. "Hey," he said, his voice low. "That lady just took something." Sarah's smile faded. "What? Are you sure?" Ethan nodded, pointing to the empty spot on the rack where the purse had been. Sarah's heart sank. Second Chances operated on a shoestring budget, and every stolen item was a blow to the community it served. She grabbed her phone, her hands trembling as she dialed the shop's owner, Miss Clara, a no-nonsense woman who'd founded the store after her own battle with poverty. "Miss Clara, we've got a problem," Sarah said, her voice tight. Miss Clara arrived within minutes, her gray hair pulled into a tight bun, her eyes blazing with determination. She listened as Ethan described what he'd seen, his words steady despite his nerves. "I saw her put the purse in her bag," he said. "She didn't even look back." Miss Clara's jaw tightened. She'd dealt with shoplifters before, but something about this felt personal. The thrift shop wasn't just a story, it was a symbol of resilience, a place where broken things found new purpose. Stealing from it was like spitting in the face of everyone who'd ever needed a second chance. Sarah and Miss Clara searched the shop, hoping to find some clue, some proof. That's when Sarah spotted Ida cheap, faux leather wallet wedged between two scarves on the rack where the purse had been. She opened it, her breath catching as she read the name on the driver's license. Karen Mitchell. Inside were credit cards, a gym membership, and a crumpled receipt from a coffee shop dated that morning. Sarah's eyes widened. "She left her wallet," she whispered. Miss Clara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then we've got her." They called the police, and Officer Daniels, a calm, broad-shouldered man with a knack for de-escalating tense situations, arrived shortly after. He examined the wallet, nodding as Sarah and Ethan recounted the story. "We'll handle it," he said, his voice steady but firm. "Do you have her address?" Sarah handed him the driver's license, her heart pounding with a mix of anger and hope. Maybe this was a chance to set things right, not just for the shop, but for Karen, too. Officer Daniels tracked Karen down at her suburban home, a tidy split level with a manicured lawn. Karen answered the door, her face a mask of irritation until she saw the police badge. "What's this about?" she snapped, crossing her arms. Daniels held up the wallet. "This was found at Second Chance's Thrift. Care to explain?" Karen's face paled, but she recovered quickly, her voice dripping with indignation. "That's mine. Someone must have stolen it." Daniels raised an eyebrow. "Funny, because a witness saw you take a purse from the shop, and this wallet was left right where the purse used to be." Karen's mouth opened, then closed, her mind racing for an excuse. She hadn't expected this. She'd been so careful, so clever, so she thought. Her heart thudded as she realized the trap she'd set for herself. The wallet, her own wallet, was the evidence that could unravel everything. Karen doubled down, her voice rising. "This is outrageous. I'm a respectable woman. I don't steal." But Daniels wasn't swayed. He'd seen her type before, people who thought their status put them above the law. "Ma'am, you can explain it at the station," he said, gesturing toward his patrol car. Karen's face twisted in fury, but she followed, her steps heavy with dread. Back at the thrift shop, Sarah and Ethan waited, the air thick with tension. Miss Clara stood by the window, her arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the street outside. "She'll come back," Miss Clara said, her voice low. "People like her always do." Sarah wasn't so sure. She wanted to believe in redemption, but Karen's arrogance had left a bitter taste. Ethan, quiet until now, spoke up. "She didn't even think about what this place means to people like me." His voice cracked, and Sarah's heart ached. Ethan had been coming to the shop for years, finding refuge in its shelves when his home life fell apart. The theft wasn't just about a purse, it was about trust. Karen sat in the police station, her hands clenched in her lap, her face a storm of defiance and fear. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the gray walls. Officer Daniels sat across from her, his notepad open, his expression unreadable. "Let's try this again," he said. "You took the purse. Your wallet was found where the purse used to be. A witness saw you. Want to tell me your side?" Karen's lips trembled, but she jutted her chin out, refusing to break. "I told you I didn't steal anything. This is a setup." Daniels leaned back, his eyes narrowing. He'd heard every excuse in the book, but Karen's denial was almost impressive in its audacity. "A setup?" he repeated. "So someone planted your wallet at the scene? That's what you're going with?" Karen's face flushed red, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. "Yes, that clerk probably did it. She looked sneaky, probably jealous of me." Back at Second Chances, Sarah was anything but sneaky. She was shaken, replaying the moment she'd found the wallet. She'd always believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt, but Karen's actions felt like a betrayal of everything the shop stood for. Miss Clara, however, was already planning the next move. "We've got her on camera," she said, pointing to a small security camera above the counter. The footage was grainy, but it clearly showed Karen slipping the purse into her bag, her movements quick and deliberate. Sarah's stomach churned as she watched. "How could someone do this?" she whispered. Ethan, standing nearby, clenched his fists. "Because she thinks she's better than us," he said, his voice low but fierce. Sarah looked at him, surprised by the intensity in his eyes. There was something deeper there, something personal. "Ethan, what's wrong?" she asked gently. He hesitated, then spoke, his words spilling out like a dam breaking. "My mom used to shop here, when we had nothing. People like that lady, they look at us like we're trash, like we don't matter." Sarah's throat tightened. She hadn't known Ethan's story, not fully. The thrift shop wasn't just a store to him, it was a lifeline. A place where his mother had found clothes for job interviews, books to read to him at night. Karen's theft felt like a violation of that sacred space. Miss Clara placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "We're going to make this right," she said. "Not just for us, but for everyone who depends on this place." She turned to Sarah. "Get that footage to Daniels. We're not letting her walk away from this." Sarah nodded, her resolve hardening. She copied the security footage onto a USB drive and handed it to Officer Daniels when he returned to the shop. "This should help," she said, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. At the station, Karen's story was unraveling. Daniels played the footage, and her face drained of color as she watched herself on the grainy screen. "That's not me," she stammered, but the lie was weak, crumbling under the weight of evidence. Daniels sighed. "Karen, you're making this harder than it needs to be. We've got your wallet, a witness, and now this. You want to keep lying? Or you want to start talking?" Karen's defiance cracked, just for a moment. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape that wasn't there. Then, in a twist no one saw coming, she burst into tears. Not the calculated sobs of someone caught, but raw, ugly tears that shook her whole body. "I didn't mean to," she choked out. I wanted to feel something. Anything." Daniels raised an eyebrow, caught off guard. Karen's voice dropped to a whisper. "My husband left me last year. The house is empty. My friends, they don't care. That purse, it was stupid, but it made me feel alive for a second." Daniels didn't soften, but he listened. Karen's confession was a shock, a glimpse into a woman who'd built a fortress of arrogance to hide her pain. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it complicated the narrative. She wasn't just a thief, she was a broken person, lashing out at a world that had left her behind. Daniels noted her words, his pen moving quickly across his notepad. "That's a start," he said. "But you still broke the law. There are consequences." Back at the shop, the confrontation was brewing. Karen, released on bail but ordered to return the purse, walked through the door of second chances the next day, her face a mix of shame and defiance. Sarah, Ethan, and Miss Clara were waiting. The air crackled with tension as Karen set the purse on the counter, her hands trembling. "Here," she muttered, avoiding their eyes. "I'm sorry, okay?" Sarah wanted to believe her, but Ethan's anger flared. "Sorry doesn't cut it," he said, his voice sharp. "You think you can just take what you want and walk away?" Karen's head snapped up, her old arrogance flickering. "You don't know me, kid," she spat. "You don't know what I've been through." Ethan stepped closer, his eyes blazing. "I know you stole from people who have less than you. That's enough." Miss Clara stepped between them, her voice calm but firm. "Enough," she said. "Karen, you made a choice. Now you face the consequences." She gestured to the purse, where Karen's wallet still sat, a silent accusation. "You didn't just steal a purse. You stole from a community, from people like Ethan, who fought for every scrap they've got." Karen's face crumpled, her bravado gone. She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. For the first time, she saw the weight of what she'd done, not just the theft, but the ripple effect on people she'd never bothered to consider. Sarah watched, torn between pity and anger. She wanted to believe in second chances, but Karen's actions had shaken her faith. The standoff in the thrift shop stretched on, the silence heavy with unspoken accusations. Karen stood frozen, the purse on the counter like a guilty verdict. Miss Clara's words hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. Sarah watched Karen's face, searching for a sign of genuine remorse, but all she saw was a woman teetering on the edge of collapse. Ethan's anger simmered, his fists clenched at his sides, while Miss Clara stood like a sentinel, her gaze unwavering. The bell above the door jingled as Officer Daniels entered, his presence shifting the room's dynamic. "Karen," he said, his voice calm but authoritative. "We need to talk about what happens next." Karen's eyes darted to him, then back to the purse. "I gave it back," she said, her voice trembling. "What more do you want?" Daniels shook his head. It's not that simple. Shoplifting's a crime, and this shop's pressing charges. Karen's face twisted in disbelief. Pressing charges? For a purse? It's a thrift shop. Her tone dripped with disdain, as if the store's humble purpose made her crime less serious. Ethan's jaw tightened, and Sarah felt a surge of anger. Karen still didn't get it. Ms. Clara stepped forward, her voice cutting through Karen's protests. This shop keeps people fed, clothed, and hopeful. You didn't just steal a purse, you stole from every person who walks through that door. Karen flinched, her bravado crumbling under the weight of Ms. Clara's words. For a moment, she looked small, exposed, like a child caught in a lie. Daniels nodded. You'll have a court date, and you'll need to make restitution. Karen's world was falling apart. She'd thought she could walk away, maybe with a slap on the wrist, but the reality was harsher. The thrift shop wasn't just a story, it was a community, and she'd violated its trust. Her tears returned, but this time they felt hollow, a performance for sympathy. Sarah saw through it, her heart hardening. You don't get to cry your way out of this, she said softly, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. You made a choice. The court date came quickly. In the small Millville courthouse, Karen sat alone, her lawyer arguing for leniency. Across the room, Sarah, Ethan, and Ms. Clara sat together, a united front. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes, listened as the prosecution laid out the evidence. The wallet, the security footage, Ethan's testimony. Karen's lawyer tried to paint her as a woman under stress, driven to a moment of weakness, but the judge wasn't swayed. Ms. Mitchell, she said, her voice like steel. Your actions showed a blatant disregard for others. This court will not tolerate that. Karen was ordered to pay a fine, complete community service, and attend a restorative justice program. The sentence was lighter than it could have been, but it felt like a sledgehammer to Karen's pride. She left the courtroom in silence, her head bowed, the weight of her actions finally sinking in. Back at Second Chances, the mood was bittersweet. The purse was back on the rack, but the violation lingered. Sarah felt a pang of guilt for her anger, wondering if she'd been too harsh. Ethan, though, was resolute. She got what she deserved, he said, his voice firm. Ms. Clara nodded. Justice isn't just punishment. It's a chance to do better. Weeks later, Karen returned to the thrift shop, not as a thief but as a volunteer, part of her court-ordered community service. She was quieter now, her arrogance replaced by a tentative humility. Sarah watched her sort clothes, her movements slow and deliberate, as if she was trying to prove something to herself, to them. Ethan kept his distance, still wary, but Miss Clara saw potential. People can change, she told Sarah one evening as they closed the shop. But they have to want to. Karen's first day of volunteering was awkward, her hands fumbling with hangers, her eyes avoiding Sarah's. But as the days passed, something shifted. She began to listen, to ask questions about the shop's mission, to see the people it served not as faceless charity cases but as neighbors, families, survivors. One afternoon, she helped a young mother pick out clothes for her kids, her voice soft as she suggested a bright red jacket for the little girl. The mother smiled, grateful, and Karen's eyes glistened with something new, pride, not in herself, but in the moment. Sarah noticed the change, though she wasn't ready to forgive completely. Ethan, too, softened, his anger giving way to cautious hope. Maybe she's not all bad, he admitted one day. Watching Karen organize a donation bin, Miss Clara smiled. No one's all bad, Ethan. That's why this place exists. Karen's journey wasn't over. She still had restitution to pay, trust to rebuild, and a lifetime of habits to unlearn. But in the thrift shop, among the mismatched clothes and worn-out books, she was starting to see the world differently. She'd stolen a purse, thinking it would fill a void, but it was the consequences, the shame, the accountability, the chance to make amends that began to heal her. Second Chances Thrift stood as it always had, a beacon of hope in a struggling town. Sarah, Ethan, and Miss Clara carried on, their faith in the shop's mission stronger than ever. Karen's theft had tested them, but it had also reminded them why they fought for this place. It wasn't just about secondhand goods, it was about second chances. For things and for people. Even for someone like Karen. As the sun set over Millville, casting a warm glow through the shop's dusty windows, Sarah smiled. Maybe, just maybe, redemption was possible after all.